So imagine you're applying for this senior architecture role. You spend days tailoring your portfolio, right?
That's exhausting.
Exactly. And you navigate this whole labyrinth of an applicant tracking system. You hit submit, and then nothing. Just the classic digital black hole.
Or, you get that automated generic rejection email from a no-reply address like 3 weeks later.
Right. It's the worst. But imagine instead of that, you get something completely different. Like you receive this customized learning curriculum. And it's designed to bridge the specific gap in your skill set that actually kept you from getting the role.
Right, rather than just a no.
Yeah. And the crazy part is it's delivered by this highly governed artificial brown bear who calmly suggests, that you reconnect next year.
It sounds wild when you say it out loud.
It really does. But today, welcome to the deep dive, by the way. Our mission today is to explore this massive stack of internal blueprints, character Bibles, and system architecture docs.
All dated today, actually. June 22, 2026.
Yes, exactly. From a company called Brehon AI Recruitment, or BAI, BAIR.
Right.
And look, they aren't trying to just optimize that resin black hole. They are trying to kill it entirely.
Which, that requires a fundamental teardown of how capital markets currently view the acquisition of human talent.
Totally.
Because the documents we're looking at, the system architectures, the doctrinal manifestos, they outline this thesis that the current model of recruitment is just a catastrophic failure of resource allocation.
Yeah, they call it transactional misery, right?
Exactly. Transactional misery. It's a binary, synchronous transaction. Like a candidate applies, a system filters them, a human recruiter glances at it for maybe 6 seconds, and a decision is made.
6 seconds, it's so bleak.
It is. And all the data, all that potential energy of the candidate is just instantly discarded if they don't fit some hyper-specific need on a random Tuesday morning.
Right. So BAIR's alternative is this entirely new operational paradigm they call the Woodland journey.
Woodland journey, yeah.
It sounds almost like a wellness retreat. But when you look at the network architecture diagrams in this leak, it's actually a massive, persistent relationship engine.
Yeah, it's not a spa day.
Definitely not. The core innovation isn't just having better parsing algorithms to read resumes. They're using AI to establish and maintain a continuous multi-year relationship with you, the candidate.
Right, through these seasonal check-ins.
Exactly. And the interface for the entity actually guiding you on this journey is what they call the governed bear.
The governed bear.
Yeah, he's this anthropomorphic brown bear rendered in incredibly high fidelity, wearing a premium black athletic tracksuit with a gold shield crest.
Look, it's easy to look at a bear in a tracksuit and just dismiss it as a cartoon mascot, like some marketing gimmick to soften the edges of a cold tech company.
Right, like Smokey the Bear went to business school.
Exactly. But the internal documentation proves otherwise. He is a highly sophisticated, intentionally designed UX layer for a rigorously governed AI system.
So our goal today is to unpack exactly how this governed bear manages a calm, human-centric candidate experience while running on, rigorous regulatory-grade tech.
Which is no small feat.
Not at all. So, okay, let's unpack this visual persona first. The visual parameters in this character Bible reveal how mathematically precise they are about the psychology here.
Oh, it's incredibly detailed.
Yeah, let's look at the direct renders. He's broad-shouldered, stands very upright. And the wardrobe is what they call his canonical look, this premium black zip hoodie and matching tracksuit.
And the fabric rendering is wild. You can see the actual weave of the material in the mock-ups.
Yeah. And that gold BAIR shield crest on his chest, they say it acts as a subtle anchor point for the eye. Plus, clean, white-soled sneakers with a mock micro-scale sole.
They've thought of everything.
They really have. Even his face is constructed with specific psychological triggers. They talk about a knitted brow mesh and an expressive wide-eye sclera.
Combined with that mock-closed knit fur texture.
Right. And the document is absolutely rigid on this.
Yeah.
He must read as premium athleisure, never cartoonish, never goofy.
That's a direct quote, yeah.
And if he has to enter an executive boardroom environment, the system dynamically swaps the tracksuit for a tailored navy suit and tie.
Which is fascinating. The intention behind those visual choices is purely structural. They are engineering a specific tone to counteract the ambient anxiety of the job market.
Because job hunting is terrifying right now.
Exactly. It's highly anxious. Look at the notes on his physical bearing. His arms are frequently crossed. He maintains a steady gaze. The developers use the phrase quiet authority for his baseline state.
Quiet authority. I like that.
Yeah, and like you said, he's explicitly programmed to be never goofy. They have this concept called emotion in the doctrine, which means emotive responses are injected sparingly and intentionally.
So he's not a cheerleader.
No, not at all. He's not trying to aggressively hype you up. He's designed to be an institutional anchor.
He projects the demeanor of a chief of staff who is, orchestrated 1,000 successful hires. He doesn't need to do jazz hands because he actually controls the levers of the system.
Exactly.
But this brings us to the environmental design, which I find fascinating architecturally. He doesn't exist in a simulated office or some sterile white void.
No, the UI layer is called the Executive Lodge.
The Executive Lodge.
Right.
And it sits within their broader operating system, Davidos. The lodge has fireside elements, deep forest visuals, very calm, ambient woodland lighting.
It's very atmospheric.
It is. But my initial read on this was honestly skepticism. Like if you were running a high-risk data engine, why wrap it in a cozy cabin aesthetic? It feels slightly deceptive.
I think.
Yeah, like putting a nice wooden veneer over a massive server rack.
Well, I wouldn't call it deceptive. I'd call it contextual framing. We have to look at the psychological state of you, the user, entering this system.
Right, stressed out.
Extremely stressed. The current digital ecosystem for job seekers is actively hostile. It's a frantic, high-pressure environment of rapid-fire applications, ghosting, algorithmic rejection.
It's a nightmare.
So the Woodland setting isn't just decoration. It's a functional metaphor for patience and rootedness. When you log into the BAIR ecosystem, the initial prompt from the BAIR isn't upload your resume.
Oh, I loved this part.
It's not search open roles either. The prompt is simply what brings you to the woods today.
What brings you to the woods today? That is just a brilliant piece of conversational design. I mean, it forces a complete reset of your parasympathetic nervous system.
It instantly diffuses the tension.
It shifts the power dynamic instantly. You're no longer begging for a job.
Exactly. It moves the interaction away from a transactional plea for employment and turns it into a diagnostic conversation about your career trajectory.
Right.
The lodge environment visually communicates what the system is going to execute algorithmically. It says, we have time, we're not in a rush, and we're going to figure out your coordinates before we make a move.
Which establishes a baseline of trust before any data parsing even starts. And that calm initial greeting, that's the genesis of the Woodland journey we mentioned.
Yeah, that's step one.
And we really need to spend some time here because this completely upends how we think about the time frame of recruitment. For the listener navigating the modern economy, you're so accustomed to the transaction.
Send resume, get job, or get rejected.
Exactly. But the Woodland journey rethinks that completely.
It does. According to the BAIR ecosystem map, the entire back-end architecture is built to support this journey, and it's explicitly mapped to seasons.
Spring, summer, autumn, and winter.
Right. This isn't a linear pipeline designed to force a conversion event by Friday afternoon. It's a cyclical retention model. It's about relationship memory.
Okay, let's trace this through a concrete scenario, because the documentation relies heavily on this concept of candidate intelligence.
Sure.
Let's say we have a listener, maybe a software engineer named Sarah. She's currently employed, generally satisfied, but she stumbles across a piece of BAIR content and enters the lodge.
Okay, so Sarah is in what the system classifies as her winter season. She's hibernating. She isn't actively looking to move.
Right. A traditional applicant tracking system would see she hasn't applied for a specific job and would basically ignore her. Into the trash she goes.
Exactly.
So how does the governed BAIR handle Sarah's winter?
The BAIR handles Sarah's winter by utilizing relationship memory without crossing into surveillance.
Oh, that's a key distinction.
It's crucial. This is where we have to delineate between traditional data harvesting and what BAIR calls candidate intelligence. The system does not build a creepy dossier on Sarah's personal life.
So it's not looking at her Instagram.
No. The architecture strictly forbids the ingestion of personally identifiable information, or PII, for this long-term mapping.
Yeah.
It doesn't care about her home address, her marital status, none of that.
Okay, but wait. Let me push back on that, because the technical implementation of that is non-trivial.
It's very complex.
Right. So how exactly does an AI system maintain a long-term, highly personalized relationship with Sarah if it's intentionally blending itself to her personal data?
Yeah.
How do you remember a person without recording the person?
You track the vector, not the identity.
The vector.
Yeah. Based on the system architecture docs, BAIR uses a high-dimensional vector database to map concepts.
Okay, explain that for me.
So when Sarah interacts with the system, say she watches a module they have on advanced Kubernetes deployment, or she signals an interest in moving from engineering into product management, the system assigns those concepts a mathematical value.
Ah, I see.
So Sarah's profile isn't Sarah, age 32, lives in Ohio. It becomes a cluster of these conceptual vectors. The system understands the semantic distance between where her skills currently are and the cluster of skills required for, say, a director of product role in a Series B startup.
Okay, that makes total sense. So the system is essentially mapping a constellation of her professional interests and capabilities.
Exactly.
And as she interacts over time, reading articles, watching shorts, that constellation shifts and grows.
Precisely. And because it's tracking the evolution of those concepts, it can provide immense utility during her winter. It isn't spamming her with irrelevant job alerts for junior developer roles.
Which is what LinkedIn does all the time.
Right. It sees her vector moving toward product management. So the seasonal check-in from the BAIR might just be a highly targeted piece of content.
Like what?
Like a short video on cross-functional leadership or a breakdown of system design from a product perspective. The BAIR delivers this value without asking for a resume.
Wow.
And his signature sign-off is always the same. When you're ready, let's talk, the BAIR.
When you're ready, let's talk. I mean, it is the complete anti-hustle. It relies entirely on the candidate pulling the trigger rather than the recruiter aggressively pushing the opportunity.
Yes.
And practically, when Sarah finally enters her spring, she's hit a ceiling at her current company, she's actually ready to move the launch. The architecture provides two distinct routing paths in the launch.
The two doors.
Right, the two doors. The hire door for employers and the be hired door for candidates.
What's critical here is the persistency of that be hired ecosystem. Let's assume Sarah goes through the door, she interviews for a role B is representing, and she doesn't get it.
Happens all the time. In the old model, she returns to the black hole. She's dead to the recruiter.
Exactly. But in the Woodland journey, she simply cycles back into a learning phase. The system retains the intelligence of why she wasn't a fit.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe her vector lacked a specific data governance compliance skill. The system remembers that and immediately begins providing resources to close that gap. The relationship doesn't terminate upon rejection.
It simply pivots to development. That is fascinating. But look, this requires a monumental shift in how we view the economics of recruitment.
A total paradigm shift.
Yeah. I mean, if they are investing all this compute power, all this content generation into a candidate who might not yield a placement fee for 3 years.
The system has to operate at a scale and efficiency that is difficult to comprehend.
It has to be incredibly efficient, yes.
Yeah.
Maintaining personalized conceptual vector mapping for tens of thousands of candidates simultaneously. That requires an absolute obsession with operational infrastructure.
Which brings us to the foundational philosophy driving the entire BAIR enterprise. In the Character Bible, there is this section simply titled The Doctrine.
Ah, the doctrines.
It reads less like a software manual and more like a manifesto on industrial engineering.
It really does. I have it here. The very first axiom is striking. It says, effort does not scale, systems scale.
Effort does not scale, systems scale.
And they elaborate on this. They state, a founder asks, what should I do today? A CEO asks, what system should exist so this never requires me again?
Right.
I mean, this is a total rejection of the hero culture that permeates so much of the startup and recruitment world, the hustle culture.
It has to be a rejection of that. If you rely on human effort to maintain the Woodland journey for 50,000 candidates, your system collapses in a week. Human recruiters rely on memory, post-it notes, fragmented CRM tools. They experience cognitive load. They burn out. The doctrine recognizes that human effort is a depreciating asset.
But infrastructure is an appreciating asset.
Exactly.
They codify this further in what they call the final rule. It states, hope is not a strategy, busyness is not progress. Infrastructure, doctrine, distribution, and trust are value. Everything else is noise.
Everything else is noise. It's a ruthless prioritization of structural integrity over temporary, quick gains.
Yeah.
And you see this doctrine manifest directly in the auditory design of the governed BAIR himself. The voice specification document is incredibly rigid.
Yes, the parameters for the voice synthesis are fascinating. According to the specs, the BAIR speaks at a strictly controlled 135 to 150 words per minute.
Very deliberate.
It's a deliberate, unhurried, mid-tempo. The timbre is defined as a male-coded mid-low, mid-40s mentor tone, and the syntax constraints require him to use short, declarative sentences.
Axiom followed by consequence. The documentation explicitly bans what they call radio presenter big energy or cartoon character squeak.
So no wacky morning DJ vibes.
Absolutely not. There is no vocal fry. There is no artificial hesitation. He sounds exactly like the doctrine he represents. Efficient, unambiguous, and structurally sound.
Okay, but I have to interject and challenge this premise for a second.
Go for it.
We're looking at a system that claims to deliver this deeply human, patient, seasonal woodland journey, right?
Yes.
Yet the underlying philosophy is this ruthless, almost Taylorist obsession with efficiency, vector databases, and eliminating human effort. Doesn't reducing a candidate to a high-dimensional vector and managing them through an automated infrastructure fundamentally strip away their humanity?
That's a fair question.
I mean, how can a system built on the premise that everything else is noise actually provide empathy? It sounds like an assembly line.
Well, what's fascinating here is how the documents resolve this exact contradiction. That is the central paradox of automation in HR, but BAIR resolves it through a very specific definition of artificial intelligence.
How so?
Their technology philosophy states, in bold text, AI is labor you manage, not software you license.
Okay, let's drill down into that. What is the functional difference between licensing software and managing labor in this context?
Okay, if you view AI as software, you use it to accelerate the assembly line. You use it to parse resumes faster, send rejection emails faster, filter out candidates faster.
Right. You increase the velocity of the transactional misery.
Exactly. You just do the bad thing faster. But if you view AI as managed labor, you assign it the cognitive heavy lifting. You assign it the task of tracking those conceptual vectors, maintaining the seasonal schedules, and managing the routing protocols.
You delegate the operational drudgery to the machine.
Yes. And by delegating the drudgery, you create a vacuum of time and space. The efficiency of the infrastructure is what buys the patience for the interface. The reason the governed bear can sit by the fire in the executive lodge and calmly ask, "What brings you to the woods today?" is precisely because there is a massive, highly efficient labor force of algorithms managing the data perfectly in the background.
That makes a lot of sense.
The human in the loop, the actual human recruiters overseeing the BAIR system, they're no longer doing data entry. They are engaged only when high-level judgment, empathy, or strategic negotiation is actually required.
So the efficiency isn't the enemy of the human experience. It's the prerequisite for it.
Exactly.
The scale of the system provides the margin required to actually be patient. Because if you're a recruiter frantically trying to meet a quota by brute forcing a CRM, you can't respect a candidate's winter.
No, you have to pressure them to take the job today.
Right. The system absorbs the pressure so the candidate doesn't have to.
The system affords the calm. But, and this is a big bet, managing an autonomous digital labor force that makes decisions about human careers introduces a massive liability.
Huge liability.
We are talking about algorithms that dictate who gets interviewed, who gets hired, and ultimately, who gets paid.
Which moves us into the regulatory framework, because the blueprints do not shy away from the reality of their industry. Recruitment AI is explicitly labeled throughout these documents as high risk.
Highly regulated.
Yeah. Because of this, BAIR operates strictly by the book. They are operating in an environment where algorithmic bias isn't just a PR problem. It's a severe legal and structural threat.
Right. And to handle that, BAIR operates what they call the engine of trust. This is the heavy governance running under the hood. They refer to it as their regulatory spine.
The regulatory spine. I like the terminology they use.
It's very evocative. And the documents show direct alignment with the most stringent global standards currently available. They are mapped to the EU AI Act, they comply with ISO 42001, and they integrate the NIST AI risk management framework.
Let's get into the mechanics of that. Because look, it's easy to slap an ISO certification logo on a website. Everyone does it.
Oh, for sure. Marketing fluff.
Exactly. What does the actual engineering of that compliance look like? The documents detail an evidence engine called Arios and a methodology called the DVA standard.
Right. So based on the structural flowcharts, Arios appears to act as a continuous real-time auditing layer. Every time the system updates a candidate's vector, every time it routes a profile to the higher door or the be hired door, Arios logs the parameter weights that influenced that decision.
It's tracking the AI's math, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And the DVA standard, which logically points to data verification and audit protocols, ensures that the data inputs are clean, the algorithmic inferences are verified against bias thresholds, and the entire decision tree is locked into an immutable audit log.
Here's where it gets really interesting for the listener, I think. This manifests in what the doctrine calls the reconstruction principle.
Yes, the reconstruction
The
principle,
doctrine states, nothing trusted because it happened. Everything trusted because it is reconstructible.
which is a radical departure from the black box AI models that dominate the tech sector right now.
Oh, completely.
Most companies use these massive neural networks where even developers don't fully understand how the model arrived at a specific output. They just trust it because the historical output generally looks correct.
Right, the computer says no problem.
Exactly. But BAIR refuses to operate that way. If a candidate is not advanced for a role, the Arios engine must be able to trace the decision back through the vector graph and isolate the exact node, the exact missing skill or market signal that caused the divergence.
So if you're denied a job, you want to know why, right? It functions exactly like a black box on a commercial airliner.
A flight data recorder, yeah.
Yeah. It's like your resume is put through a system where every single decision is recorded on that flight data recorder. If there's a crash, like a bad hiring decision or a suspected bias, they can pull the tapes.
They don't rely on a recruiter's hazy memory from 3 months ago.
Right. The BAIR is the ultimate unbribable air traffic controller. It values evidence over assertion.
And this reconstructible evidence base completely defines the BAIR's negotiation posture. The doctrine dictates a strategy they call the clean hands power play.
The clean hands power play. It sounds like a geopolitical maneuver.
It essentially is.
Yeah.
Because the BAIR possesses the indisputable audit log, his conversational design requires that he never acts as a weapon, he never bluffs, and he never argues.
Never argues.
Right, because argument implies a contest of opinions. The BAIR does not deal in onions.
So how does that play out in real life?
Well, if an enterprise client requests his candidate filtering parameter that, say, violates the EU AI Act, or it trips a bias threshold in the Arios engine, the BAIR doesn't get into a subjective debate about ethics.
He simply presents the reality of the system.
Exactly. Present reality, then the remediation path.
So he'd say something like, this request violates Article 10 of the EU AI Act regarding data governance. Here is the compliant alternative.
Yes. It is the ultimate expression of quiet authority. No drama, just facts.
That is incredibly powerful. But look, to build trust with candidates and employers, having a perfectly governed, reconstructible AI system in the back end means nothing if the market doesn't understand it.
Oh, 100%. A black box is still a black box to a candidate if you don't explain how the telemetry works.
Trust cannot exist without literacy.
Exactly, which leads directly to their massive investment in public education. BAIR doesn't just do this in secret. They actively teach the public how it works.
Let's talk about that content architecture. They broadcast heavily on YouTube and LinkedIn, but they don't run traditional marketing campaigns, do they?
No, they operate on a strict mathematical framework they call the 80-155 rule.
The 8155 rule.
The governing philosophy is trust first, promotion second.
So let's outline that ratio. The discipline required to execute this is pretty severe. 80% of all content produced by the BAIR ecosystem contains absolutely zero commercial ask.
Zero.
No book a demo, no click here to apply. This 80% is pure, unadulterated value delivery. It's focused on career development, AI literacy, and governance education.
They are literally open sourcing their methodology, teaching people for free.
Right. And then the remaining 20% is carefully gated. So 15% is categorized as soft positioning.
Soft positioning. This is where they might produce a deep dive on how their DVA standard actually works, or how the Arios engine audits bias.
So they are explaining their product, but the framing is entirely educational.
Right. They're showing their method as teaching. The goal is to teach the market what responsible AI looks like, using themselves as the case study.
Which leaves just 5% for a direct call to action, explicitly asking to work with them.
And the doctrine states that this 5% can only be deployed after the trust bank has been massively overfunded by the other 95%.
The trust bank, that's a great concept. And they use highly specific SORMAs to deliver this curriculum, right?
They do. We see references to streams like BAIR Radio. These are audio overviews, like 8 to 25-minute broadcasts breaking down complex topics. Interestingly, the documents note they use tools like Notebook LM to generate these.
Oh, wow. So they're blending AI utility with their educational mission?
Exactly. They also run a series called Governance for Humans, which translates dense regulatory frameworks like the EU AI Act into actionable intelligence for everyday knowledge workers.
And for founders and enterprise clients, they offer a 90-day CEO transformation program.
Right.
But let's connect this back to you, the listener. Let's look at this through the lens of the person on the Woodland journey. Even if you were just a student or an early career professional who are one of their target audiences, by the way, the system has identified you as a primary target for this 80% content.
Right. The Governed Bear is essentially acting as your personal, highly advanced career tutor for free.
Exactly. He's teaching you how to optimize your conceptual vector, how to understand algorithmic bias, providing you with skills and signals for the AI era.
This is the Woodland journey in action. It's providing continuous value season after season.
And this is the economic genius of the model. By providing this continuous high-fidelity education during your winter and spring seasons, they are building this impenetrable moat of trust.
Yeah, so when you finally reach your summer season.
Right, when you are highly skilled, fully literate in AI governance, and you're actually ready to hire or be hired for a massive role, who are you going to trust with your career trajectory?
A random human recruiter who cold messaged you on LinkedIn with a generic pitch.
Or the governed bear who has been patiently teaching you by the fire for 2 years? The answer is obvious. BAIR becomes the inevitable choice.
Inevitable. Which perfectly mirrors the bear's core sign-off. Build assets, build systems, build inevitability.
They aren't trying to win a transaction today. They're structuring the system so that they win the entire market tomorrow.
And to protect that inevitability, the content architecture enforces draconian guardrails, what they call drift guardrails.
Drift guardrails. What do they never do?
Well, the bear is not allowed to become an influencer. The documents note that the broader parent company runs other media campaigns. Like, there's a cookbook, an Alex Wenger golf universe, some Craconian football content.
Right.
But the governed bear is completely cordoned off from all of that. No cookbook crossovers, no golf, no overt sales.
No cookbook CEO finance drift. That is a direct, bolded quote from the doctrine. The bear stays strictly in his lane. He doesn't share top 10 productivity hacks. He doesn't talk about sports. He is the steward of standards.
He speaks only on recruitment, AI literacy, career vectors, and governance.
Furthermore, the guardrails absolutely forbid the exploitation of the network for clout.
Oh, this is huge.
Yeah. The bear never exposes candidate data, and critically, he never name-drops their internal sensitive info or enterprise clients.
Even though the documents mention massive accounts, Hag Street, Glofy, Lonza, Pfizer.
Big names.
Massive. But the bearer will never leverage those logos in a public post. The discretion is absolute.
He maintains the confidentiality of a true chief of staff. So as we pull all these blueprints together, we're looking at a masterclass in systems engineering applied to human capital.
We really are.
We started by looking at a visual of a synthetic brown bear in a premium tracksuit, and we uncovered a complete blueprint for the future of recruitment.
We examined the shift from the frantic transactional hiring process to the Woodland journey. A system built on calm, seasonal check-ins that respects the nature of careers.
Utilizing high-dimensional vector mapping to track conceptual growth without violating personal privacy, which is incredible.
And we debated the philosophy that efficiency and managed AI labor are not the enemies of the human experience. They're actually the necessary infrastructure that allows patience and calm to exist at scale. Because systems scale, effort does not.
Right. We analyzed the regulatory spine, the Arios evidence engine, and the profound implications of the reconstruction principle, guaranteeing that every algorithmic decision can be audited and explained.
And we saw how the 8155 rule builds an unshakable foundation of trust through relentless free education, the trust bank.
Exactly. So the takeaway here, whether you are a CEO trying to build inevitability into your company or a job seeker who is just exhausted by the resume black hole, the lesson is about building infrastructure that allows for genuine patient trust.
It really is.
But, this leaves us with a final, massive, somewhat unsettling question to mull over.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. We spent decades assuming that bringing AI into recruitment would make it colder, more robotic, and less human, right?
That's the standard fear.
But if Brehon AI recruitment succeeds, if a highly governed synthetic bear can perfectly audit its own biases, remember your career trajectory across the seasons without pestering you, and patiently wait for you to be ready to talk. Does this artificial system actually offer a more human and respectful recruitment experience than a real human recruiter ever could.
That is wow. I mean, do human recruiters just become emotional counselors while the AI acts as the true architect of human capital?
It is a structural shift that will redefine the nature of work itself. We will leave you in the woods to ponder that. Keep building your assets. Build your systems. And as BAIR demands, build inevitability.